Australia has responded to a call for help from the United Arab Emirates as it faces bombardment from Iranian drones. One of the country's most sophisticated military surveillance planes, the E-7A Wedgetail, will be deployed. Our Global Affairs editor, Laura Tingle, is in Dubai and joins me now. Laura, hi there. You are in Dubai at the moment. What's been the reaction like to Australia agreeing to deploy that Wedgetail plane with a fairly large crew of 85 personnel?
Look, I think deep gratitude would be the right way to describe it, Girish. Australia and the UAE signed a new strategic partnership last year. And in some ways, this commitment by Australia is sort of, a high point, if you like, of the relationship, not in the best circumstances, but it's unusual for us to be making such a commitment to a non-allied country as such. And so there's gratitude here. The UAE has faced more of a onslaught of missiles and drones than anywhere else in the region, including Israel. And while it's got a very sophisticated and well-financed and well-equipped military, there's only so many surface to air defences that you might have in your stock room, and so they're grateful for any assistance that they can get.
Yeah, so now that brings us to the big argument many have been asking today. Is Australia now in this war with the military support now being given to UAE? It is indirect. So what's your view? Is Australia very much a player in this conflict?
Well, of course, there are sort of conflicting problems here for Australia. I think there's still an active debate going on about whether this war is legal. In terms of the accosting of Iran by Israel and the United States. Are we legally at war? Well, I think the academics will tell you that we are. And of course, we had personnel on board that US submarine that struck a vessel a few days ago and sank it. So we are sort of involved, but we're helping out another country which is sort of involved but not involved as well. Iran's been working very hard to try to drag countries in from around the world and particularly the region. People say that there are about 14 countries now that have been affected by the war, from Iraq to Pakistan. And so we are involved, but we keep saying, the Australian government keeps saying, that we are basically providing defensive assistance for a non-combatant who is under attack from Iran.
Yes. So you've been in Dubai for some days now. What's the sentiment on the ground and those of other states in the Gulf? Is there a fear there of more Iranian strikes to come into the kingdom and to the other major cities in the Gulf?
Without doubt, the expectation is that it will continue, and it has been fairly relentless. Almost all of the incoming weapons have been neutralised before they've struck. So people feel, I think, quite safe here. A lot have opted to leave, but a lot are sort of getting on with their lives in a pretty normal sort of way. But the presumption is that this is going to continue, and whatever the direct kinetic effect of these attacks for a country like the UAE and a city like Dubai, which is so heavily based on being a transport hub, one of the biggest airports in the world, one of the biggest ports. We've obviously seen the Strait of Hormuz closed by Iran. That has effects not just on oil shipments, but also on food shipments into the region. The region is about 90% reliant on food imports. So there is an underlying nervousness about where this is going to go.
Yeah, so we are seeing, of course, Iran launching drones and missiles, Israel returning fire, and, a barrage coming from the US. But there is also a war of words going on here, because Iran says it will not let any oil through the Middle East if the US and Israel continue attacking. Donald Trump is threatening now more severe strikes at Tehran. So as far as the Straits of Hormuz is concerned, who's really got the upper hand there?
Well, at the moment, without a doubt, Iran has got the upper hand. It's effectively been able to control the Strait of Hormuz. As viewers would know, this is just this little promontory of land where the UAE is, with this very tiny little gap, which is completely dominated on the other side by the Iranian coast. So, how Donald Trump wants to sort of smash through that is unclear. I noticed that the Pakistani military are now escorting their commercial shipping in the Gulf, but I don't think anybody's suggesting that they're going to try to force their way through the Strait. So it's a very difficult situation given 20% of the world's oil flows through that tiny gap in the Gulf.
Yeah, so if this blockade does continue, Laura, would this trigger the other Arab nations towards less diplomacy and more direct confrontation with Iran? Even countries like Qatar that have said that they feel betrayed by Iran.
Look, I think they're in a really tough position here. I mean, none of them wanted this war. None of them have particularly, strong sentiment towards the regime in Tehran, but they also see this. People will say to you here, look, this is essentially Israel's war. And I think that reflects the fact that they don't want to be siding with Israel on this in this conflict either. So they're really stuck in the middle and facing the possibility that the unknown here is what might happen to the Houthis, who are to the south of where we are now. Just as Israel's facing sort of incomings from both Lebanon and Iran, the Gulf countries could face incoming from both Iran and from Yemen into the south.
Yes, and Iran's military is obviously nowhere a big power as the US. But from what you've observed since this conflict broke out, what is Tehran's overall strategy, and do you see anything changing with the new supreme leader?
Well, I think the real message of the new leader coming in is that nothing's going to change. Anybody who thought that, some commentators have said that Donald Trump could get a Venezuela, that is, that there'd be some player in the regime who would be able to take over. That's all been wiped out. The regime is locked into a confrontation till the death. And their strategy quite clearly is to, as we've seen, maximise the damage on neighbouring countries around the region, and through that hit the world oil market and the world economy. Now, I think their first impression of that was, or their first intention of that was to hope that the Gulf states would pressure America to pull back. Now, that's not going to happen. All that they've managed to do is all that Iran has managed to do is alienate the Gulf states. So I still don't think that they will get involved, but it's certainly also a miscalculation on Iran's part that they thought that they could use this to get a quick outcome for the war, just as Donald Trump seemed to be presuming that if he was able to eliminate the supreme leader, that the Iranian regime would fall over.
Okay, Global Affairs editor Laura Tingle in Dubai. Thanks very much for your analysis.
Thanks, Girish.